and welcome to another episode of the Heather Simcoe podcast, Sober Boss Babe. And today we're talking about something that I believe needs to be said more openly, more honestly, and without shame. And that is, you don't have to be an addict to be addicted to something. And I just want to have you sit with that for just a second and think, you don't have to be an addict to be addicted to something. Because the moment most people hear that word addiction, they immediately think, that's not me, I don't have that problem, or I'm not that bad. And from my own personal experience, those were definitely situations in which when someone said that to me, definitely a few phrases that came out of my mouth. And so we picture extremes, rock bottoms, substances, chaos, homeless people. My idea was thinking, I'm not drinking alcohol out of a paper bag. So I had this idea of what an addict necessarily looked like, which honestly kept me from getting sober longer. So what if addiction isn't about the substance? It's about the relationship and redefining addiction. So I'd like to redefine this together. And addiction is not just alcohol, drugs, and the things that we've been taught to be labeled as serious problems. If you look back at my previous episode where I talk about what does sober really mean, I break down mental, emotional, and physical sobriety. But today I want to talk about addiction, not necessarily, you don't have to be an addict to be addicted to something. And so addiction is, if we look at it, repeated behavior used to avoid or change how you feel. And even when it has consequences, that's it. That's the definition. And when you look at it that way, you start to realize this shows up in a lot more places than we've been willing to admit. So let's make this real, because this is where it's very important to break down the stigma, because addiction can look like overworking and calling it ambition, over-exercising and calling it discipline, obsessing over food and calling it health, scrolling social media for hours and calling it checking out, shopping, spending, productivity, control, you name it, it can be an addiction. And so here's the part that most people don't want to admit, is that if you're using something to not feel something, you're in a pattern of addiction. And this is not about labeling anybody. It's about self-inventory and self-correction. And this is about helping you see yourself clearly. So one of the biggest problems that keep people stuck, in my observation, is because they don't want the label. And again, I was there myself, where I didn't want the label of alcoholic or an addict. And so it kept me from getting the help that I needed for far too long. And so what I was saying to myself, I'm not an addict, I don't have a problem. At least I'm not as bad as blah. And so I was taught, don't compare, identify. So if you can learn how to identify yourself in another person instead of compare, it allows you to move into self-improvement rather than self-comparison. And I understand that because there's so much shame that's attached to that word because of the stigma that is around being an addict. Albeit there's a whole lot more awareness with mental health and everything that's going on in our society today. But I think it being a stigma keeps people from getting the help or recognizing their behavior in order to change it. And so here's the truth. Addiction is not a moral failure. It is that repeated behavior. And alcoholism, if we look at drug addiction and addiction to even anger, these are diseases that need to be treated. And so, yes, there's the addict category. And there's a lot of different pillars in this where, as I said, you don't have to be an addict to be addicted to something. And so we need to get it so it's not stigmatized anymore, because when it's stigmatized, we keep it hidden. And when we keep it hidden, we can't heal it. So today we're removing the label and we're replacing it with awareness. And this is where I really want to speak directly to the women I work with, because this is a group that gets completely overlooked the most. And we're talking about high functioning women, which honestly is most women in modern day society. Successful women, business owners, mothers, leaders, the women who show up, they get things done, and hold everything together. On the outside, she looks like she's got it all handled. And I am number one offender of this. She's got it. I've got it. Leave me alone. Let me put up my facade and stay out of my problems. And inside, I was falling apart. Internally exhausted, overstimulated, constantly managing everything and needing something to take off the edge. And so maybe it's not alcohol anymore. It can be food. It can be control. It can be never sitting still. So you can be high performing and still stuck in addictive patterns. You can put down the substance and pick up something else. And we call that, or at least I call that, same root, different branch. And this is what no one talks about is, and I do this in my testimony every year, same root, different branch. If I'm at Staples more than I'm in my office, I might be addicted to office supplies. If I'm shopping more than I'm working, again, there's a lot of these different situations where the addiction can channel itself somewhere else. And so when we remove one thing and something else takes its place, you stop drinking, now it's food. You fix food, now it's work. You slow down work, now it's control or anxiety. Why? Because the root was never addressed. It's not about what you're doing, it's about why you need to do it. That's the work. That's what we want to get under. So the real root is, because addiction is not about pleasure, it's about relief and escape. So relief from stress, from overwhelm, emotions you don't want to feel. For me, it could be good emotions or bad emotions. It could be any emotion that I was escaping from. And also when your nervous system doesn't feel safe. So most women were never taught to process emotions. And I talked about this in my previous one. Again, 90 seconds to process your emotions. Sit with discomfort, learn how to get uncomfortable, being comfortable, getting uncomfortable. Again, learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, which is a very strange statement. And we learn, or to learn how to regulate themselves. So we learned how to cope instead. And not that coping is not bad, but when your coping becomes dependency, that's where this pattern begins to form. And so let's make it simple. You might be in an addictive pattern if you feel urgency around something. You just say one more, a little more too often. You feel guilt afterward. You rely on it to change your mood. You try to stop and you can't consistently. So if this feels like you and it's running inside of you, that's your sign. It's not shame. It's just simply awareness. It's, again, we're talking about self-inventory. I'm not here to judge. I've been on this road for the majority of my life. And my job here is to help you identify so that you can transform to be the best version of yourself. That is my mission. That is my passion, is helping women observe their behavior, learn how to optimize their emotions, take away the addiction or that addictive behavior so that they can maximize their ability to be the best versions of themselves. So you don't need to call yourself an addict. You don't need to adopt a label that doesn't resonate with you, but you do need to be honest. And honesty honestly creates freedom. When you face what it is that you've been hiding or face what you think is a stigma, this is where you're able to actually break free from these patterns. And when you work within either my community or with me, we have a program I call Balanced, where we break down the behavior, we see the pattern, we access it, we understand the pattern, and we learn and then change the pattern. So it's not about labeling yourself, it's about understanding yourself. And the more you understand yourself, the better you can be for yourself and everyone around you. Especially as high-performing women, everyone's always pecking at us and expecting from us. And we often just escape rather than do self-care. And self-care not being selfish, feeling guilty that if I take care of myself or take the time out to take care of myself, then I'm not serving others. When in fact, you're burning yourself out, which makes you more of a disservice to all the people that you're trying to be high-functioning for. So freedom is not never craving. It's not ever struggling. It's not being perfect. We want to remove those. And freedom is your awareness, your choice, your regulation, and your self-trust. And freedom is not removing everything. It's no longer needing it to escape. And that's where we go from addiction to moderation. And as I've said before, it depends on the addiction. I talked about this with food. You can't not eat. There are some forms of addiction that you can be abstinent from. You can abstain from shopping for certain items. You can abstain from alcohol, from drugs, from certain substances, and not have it actually harm you physically or emotionally. So we want to make sure that we're separating out what those substances are. But it's when you're no longer needing it. it creates a completely different life. And so I want to give you something simple that you can take away with you and ask yourself, what do I reach for? What do I reach for when I don't want to feel something? And I want you to really take that in. What do I reach for? What do I escape to when I don't want to feel something? And that's it. That is the first sentence, the first question you need to ask yourself to begin your transformation. And whatever that is, that's the only sentence you need. Don't fix it, don't change it, just notice it. Because awareness is our first step in breaking any pattern. And in my own self-discovery now, almost 12 years sober, I've had to keep going back over and over again because that same root, different branch, re-identifying what it is that I might be addicted to. Because that's just, I identify myself as an addict because I'm easily addicted to things. And again, what I'm trying to accomplish here is to take away the stigma so that most people, even if they're not an addict, can identify this behavior so that they can begin to change it and be optimized. And so if this episode made you feel a little uncomfortable, well, then good, because you're now identifying something that means you're seeing something new in yourself. And the other thing I want to encourage you with is you do not have to hit rock bottom in order to change your life. We call it an elevator. You can get off at any stop. You're the one who can make the choice to look at your behaviors and get off and make a change at any point. You don't want to wait for one day. You want it to be day one. Now, make that change. And you don't have to carry a label to do the work. Again, we don't have to put that letter A on you of addict for you to recognize addictive behavior in order to change it to make yourself better. And you definitely do not have to do this alone at all whatsoever. This is the work that we do inside of my community. This is the work that I do with you. It's not perfection. It's progress over perfection. It's not restriction. Again, it's progress over perfection. We work on awareness, we work on alignment, we work on real change. And that's you being here. That's you listening. That's you looking at your life for what it is, your habits, your behaviors. You're listening to this for a reason. If this grabbed you, it means internally, you know you are worrying about something that you need to put down. And it's just I'm just a voice on your phone or a video on your phone. You're the one that is living with this. And I want to encourage you that once you're able to look at this in the mirror and identify it, I'm here for you. There are communities here for you, but especially the community that I've built of women who are all just real. They lay down their problems. We help one another grow, and everyone's in a different spot, which is so beautiful. There's so many people who have conquered so many different avenues of life. We've got moms, we've got business owners, we've got prospective people who want to leave their 9-to-5 and eventually be self-employed. I've got people all over the world and women just in so many different spots where they want to put down anything that's going to hold them back. Reach into a community of women who are supporting one another, truly supporting one another. No judgment, no put downs, nothing to call names, but to really identify the behavior for what it is. Because you're not bad getting good. We're putting down a sick behavior to get better. And when we're trying to be high performing women, anything that is in the way of us being better performers is just preventing us from being our best selves. And this is really the most magical part of the transformation is, first of all, you identifying that there's a problem. Second of all, that you have the willingness, courage, and honesty to reach out to a community of women who are there to help you, because that's the first step of real, true change. And once you can get that help and then you're helping other people, it lightens the load because everyone's problems are just a little bit different. Someone can have food, someone could be drugs, some people can be shopping,